calling the meeting to order at 5:30. First item is approval of the agenda. A motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes, we have none at this time. However, I'll back up for just a moment on that. And some of the materials that you have, including the recommendation of our engineers and Dan's letter to the engineers requesting their thoughts on the matter, along with the warning letter, which we'll get to later on, and Dan's original letter of around August 15th saying that there was a leak down at Netarts, were all provided. I hand-carried them to Tamara, who's the representative of the oyster growers. I hand-carried that to her about around 2 o'clock this afternoon because I didn't believe it was fair for, if they were coming this evening, that they just see these letters as they're walking in the door. So, and I told her that if you need more time to review these materials, we would give you more time. My thought being that if they have a position they would like to present, be more than happy to entertain it. And then we would call for a motion to, perhaps in support of West Tech, and open it for discussion among the board members without input from the oyster growers who would have already given their position. And then we could discuss and either make a decision or defer it for more information. But that's where we are in regard to those matters. So with that said, we have board public comments, none. Board questions, comments, and discussion. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make at this time? Okay, the next item is review of the minutes of August 18th, 2022, the regular board meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And any discussion of those minutes? If there's no discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
There being none opposed, the motion is carried. Financial statements for August 31. Motion to accept the financial statements of August 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments or review or other thoughts on the part of board members?
On page 3, that the new connections. Are those in August? Those are 2? Alder is separate from Highland?
There's 3 for August.
Okay. Oh, I see, there's a slash mark. There's
Yeah.
no Dance, Highland, and Alder.
Yeah. If you actually go to page 7 under system development charge, which is your second item down, you'll see how much it increased in a month. The $47,000 increased in a month. So your first one is general fund, your second one is your system development charge, which that reflects the money we've taken in.
Right.
Okay, are there any other comments? And if there are none, all in favor of accepting the financials as written, say aye.
Aye.
The next item is the board audit account payable for review. Bank reconciliation statement. And that's not a item for board action. I had a question. We expect to have some additional costs from the spill, right? This is just a piece of it.
This is just the hauler. That's all, we have not received Emery and Sons invoice, and we just paid an invoice for West Tech. Was there some of that on there for them when they came over?
There is, but that's for power generator improvement.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm talking about for the spill that
Right.
we had in August. I don't, it's usually, when we receive West Tech's invoice, it's usually broke down what it's for.
And I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
some
I
of it
don't-
was Avalon Heights and then the public works signs came out.
Okay, and I'm assuming there's a whole lot more for excavation. $300 is
The $300 was Durbin filling in the hole that was left from
filling
the.
in the hole.
Filling in the hole from the
Okay, but
excavation.
not digging the hole.
No, so his was 300, and then you'll see another one for rock from, what was the name of it? Clausen, there'll be another, there's an invoice in here from Clausen Trucking, that was for the load gravel.
Okay. So we'll see more.
We'll see more. I don't know when we'll be invoiced from Emery and Sons or West Tech.
Okay. So that brings us to the district report, I believe. Moving along. I'm gonna slow you down a little bit.
Okay, so the treatment plant's running well within its permit limits. We still have no collection system on, scheduled to go out and do I&I work. We're waiting for the rain to come. Doesn't look like it's gonna come anytime soon, but we need the rain to find the leaks in the pipes. It's just easier then. We discovered during the failure that there was no indicator on the control panel that told us what our force main pressures were. It was still monitored in the pump station, but there was no way for it to alarm us. So that's been rectified, that's been fixed, and the new the new controller has been installed. We need to bring the automation route back so they can loop it in with our SCADA and with the control panel so they both read at, so they both read identical. So that's not quite completed yet, but we are covered. We will get an alarm if we lose pressure again. All the other pump stations are operating without any major issues. Somebody. Jerry, would you ask a question? Oh, okay, sorry. This is normal stuff at the other pump stations, just maintenance work, screens and displays and stuff like that. West Tech has completed the design for the portable generator for the Oceanside pump station. They're in the process of getting it out to bid. They did call and inform me that it's a 12-month lead time to get a generator. So I was concerned about going to bid if it would cost us more having a contractor come back a year later and then hook up the generator, test it, and get a final on completion to get paid. So I'm not quite sure how that works. We won't know till we actually get the bids in and how the contractors want to be compensated for that. So as soon as I get that, then we'll know. Some just include it, but you have retainage, so you'll keep the retainage until they come back and complete it. Like I said, we're not going to know until they bid and they're going to put in there how they want to do it. Coating of the parking lot, the resealing, it's about half done. You've seen the cones out here. It's done a little over halfway from the first shop, all the way back here to where we turn around and we park around the office building. Tomorrow they'll come in and they'll finish coating. So we will have the gate closed. The office won't be closed. You guys did put it on the website that people will have to call for an appointment. We would have to escort them and bring them around the bottom and up to get them in here. We really don't want somebody walking through the rocks and tripping and falling and stuff like that. So hopefully they can just do it by phone, but if not, we will make accommodations to get them in. But this gate will be closed up here. We can't have them driving in with the fresh sealer down. So that's currently what I have. It's pretty short. We haven't had a lot going on since the last board meeting. Just trying to clean up work that's already out there.
Okay, that's it, huh?
Yep, that's it.
Short and sweet. All right, old business, item 1 is the SDC methodology report. Can I have a motion to accept the draft methodology report, realizing that at the hearing to occur later this year, something could possibly be changed in this report. But this would be the report that we would put out and make available to any interested party as far as what our intention is as far as raising the SDCs. That's kind of a long-winded way of saying it, but it obviously isn't final approval because the whole package is subject to what we may learn at the hearing in November.
So moved.
So moved? Okay.
So it's
get all
90
that.
days. So just to finish, starting tomorrow, we will have it ready. We'll put out this disclosure statement, whatever, I'm losing whatever, and then there'll be 90 days. So we're looking at December's meeting for the hearing.
So moved.
And I know you had given us some good thoughts on getting this thing done, and it's slipped, and and there's been a lot of different things that have kind of administrative failures, I guess you could call them, that the process was slowed down, but, so can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other questions that anybody may have at this point in time?
Is there a communication strategy to get the word out to members of the system?
Members meaning the general public, or?
Yes.
Well, it'll go on our website.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's accept, if I can have a vote on the methodology, because then we're gonna talk about the interested parties notification, which
Okay.
I think falls under what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, all in favor of accepting the draft methodology report, say aye.
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 All right. It's carried. Now we have another motion here, the interested parties SDC notification dates. We have a draft letter here. Can I have a motion to accept the letter?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay, so I think now it goes to your question, Jim, about notifying parties and who gets notified. I think that's what you were asking, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and explain that again?
So the notification to interested parties are contractors, builders,
Right.
that. So we know that we have 2 developers that are currently developing lots. So we'll send them a notification. We don't send it to everybody. We will post it on our website. And we will probably post it like we do the board agendas at both community centers.
I had wondered who was on the list that we had. And I come to find out from years and years and years ago, we really don't have a list because some of those contractors and others have disappeared or gone out of business. So we don't really have a current list. So I foolishly went down to community development and said, do you have a list of contractors?
Yeah.
And they said, no. I said, what? They said, well, we can go through documentation and try to cull through it. In fact, the young lady at the front desk said, that would be a good idea to have a list like that.
You think?
You think? I said, well, here's my, here's the reason I'm asking, and here's who I am, and here's my phone number. And I did not hear any more from them. But I made that inquiry, but
That's
it
great.
didn't bear any fruit. So,
I would think that Sarah Asher should be an email or something, just so they can post it.
They don't do that. I don't believe the county does that like that. I don't think they post our SDC changes.
well, would they have a place that they might put our letter? of
Generally how it's
changes
done,
to this?
anybody that buys a piece of property or wants to modify their current dwelling will call and ask what the fees are. Realtors call and ask what the current fees are, because they're all aware that fees change. User rates change, system development, connection fees all change. So they always call before people buy a piece of property or build a home. Contractors that are lined up to build, to go under contract for their budgeting will, for a customer, will call and ask what all of our fees are. And they actually call all the districts. It's not posted publicly like, there's one place to go find out where every district or every city has those, without calling those entities.
Okay, so I'll reframe the question. In the past, has there been any other outreach other than what you're got down here on paper?
No,
Okay.
no.
So, Jim, are you satisfied with the answer, or?
Well, I guess.
The,
I mean,
the only thing that's changed, Jim, is we have our own website now.
Right,
And a lot of them will look us up because, times have changed.
right.
So electronically, they'll look us up on their website on the phones or whatever. But usually who inquires are the contractors.
Right. Okay.
Okay, one thing, and I would throw this out to the board. We went through this letter and updated it, and it may appear a little confusing because you need a 90-day notice, but you only need 60 days to make it available for a public review. So it puts everything off to our hearing in mid-December with a effective date of 1 January 2023. What I didn't see on this sheet was anything that detailed what we were proposing as far as the new cost of an SDC. And I thought probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And if you look at the last page of your methodology draft report, you'll see that has the proposed new SDCs, including the 14,204 for a single-family dwelling, which is most of what we're probably dealing with. But my thought was for transparency purposes, just to include that table from the methodology report as an attachment to this letter. Of course, we don't have to, but I thought for, you know, purposes of clarity, that it might be worthwhile to just attach it. And I mean, if they look at it and say, well, it was a lot less than that, then they can do a little research and contact us and find out what it was before the new proposed SDC. So I'd like any thoughts if somebody either thinks that's an okay idea, or they don't like the idea, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Anybody else? So everybody's okay with it then?
So, I have another question.
Yes.
When did we do this before? When was the last time we did this?
2003 or 4, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So we haven't had a change, what, almost 20 years?
Well, it's, yeah, in 19,
19.
So-
18, 19 years.
I don't know, I just, you know, brainstorming here, but I wonder if that, you know, the previous development charge methodology was done in XYZ. So,
Yeah, and the system development charge at that time went from $5,500 to the $9,869, because it was also over 10 years before it was looked at before. But remember, your facility plan is what they look at, so as that changes, then you
Right.
probably should review your system development charges at about that time. So I usually recommend that we look at these, the master plan. We should look at that every 5 years to update it, because some projects you'll get done before others in there, and it should be updated to stay current, which I just got a request today from DEQ for our facility plan, because they're getting back into, what I'm understanding is to apply for grants, you need to have that updated with DEQ, because they can also help and offer grants or, you know, grant funding on projects, which we do have some system expanding projects in our facility plan. I know I've talked to you at length with it, John, about buying some, and you too, Jim, buying property down in Lower Avalon.
right,
Down there. So I will get that to them, and I will put that as a priority that we're looking at doing, so we can get on that list. Yes, but it shouldn't go so long in between updating your SDCs.
if I didn't know, if I just, you know, out of the blue, public person decided to read this, I think a question I would have was when was the last time it was re-up? I don't know.
Well, we can certainly, because we have all the paperwork, we can go back and look to see when, especially through the resolution.
Because if it's
When it was
been
adopted.
20 years, it makes a lot more sense, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Just for the general person.
And we can give you that information, the board, that information of when the last resolution was signed and adopted. So you'll also know if somebody asks you. If they know you're active board members, you may get a call, so,
Right.
an explanation.
And this number is kicking around out there in the public. And the reason I say that was, I had contacted the Netarts Water Department about attending one of their meetings, and the lady who's the manager there said, "Are you guys really raising the SDC to 14,000? And I said, well, that's on the table, you know, certainly. So, I mean, she got it from somebody. So it's out there in the public domain, although not officially as it would be with the letter and the methodology, draft methodology.
Most people they don't even know the reason for a system development charge. That's probably what shocks them the most. What do you use this money for? Most of them, well, we have contractors say all you're doing is collecting free money for nothing, you know. And it is for development and expansion of the sewer district.
Well, and it became a little bit controversial with the county building committee, the group, I forgot, the commission that's part of the county, because that was one of the things they looked at. Could SDCs be reduced around the county?
It's the housing commission.
The housing commission.
Right.
Yeah. Could the SDCs be reduced so that it's more favorable for building and construction for, workforce
Right.
buildings? So, it's been played with around the county already somewhat.
And the reason they don't usually, because if you want to encourage building homes, you have to expand the utilities in order to take in those homes. So you're gonna pay it in SDC, or you're gonna put it on all the ratepayers to pay it when you have to expand. Another bond or a loan, a revenue loan.
Yeah.
So either way, the expansion has to be paid for.
Okay, any other questions or comments? There being none, all in favor of accepting the proposed draft of the interested parties notification to be effective tomorrow, with the addition of the attachment of table 2-7 of the SDC schedule, say aye.
All right.
Next is, we have the USDA compliance review and limited English proficiency draft. Do you want to just give a quick background on how this came about? Or,
Well, it came about in 2012, my understanding is USDA Rural Development changed their requirements. So you have compliance to meet whenever you have federal loans, which our bonds are federal loans, are large ones. And so it has to be that you're an equal opportunity employer, you have to meet all the federal regulations. That has to do with, my understanding is, languages. Do you have interpreters? Is there a way for you to communicate with somebody? This is nothing that I've been working on. The office works on this, but Vonne's off ill this board meeting. So that's basically my knowledge of it. We have, or the office has compiled a, I'm gonna call it a 3-ring binder with cards in it. So somebody would come in that's, their, whatever language, they could point at that and tell us what their language is. We do have on our phones interpretation, so they can talk to our phone and you can interpret it back. That's pretty limited, and that's not really what USDA will accept. So you need interpreters. So this is a draft for the board to look at, but we are working on that. And there's actually quite a bit to it. We're 10 years behind on updating, but they're 10 years behind on notifying us what the new requirements are. And I think we have 30 days to respond.
It was just 30 days to respond to when
from
we're
the
gonna
date
have
of the
it.
letter.
Yes,
With some-
when we were gonna have it. We just had a walkthrough inspection. Our 5-year, it took them roughly 10 years before they did the walkthrough inspection. So that's how far behind they are.
Yeah, this area specialist, Susan Sauer, she sent me, I don't know if she sent any other board members, about a 5-question survey related to 504. I don't know, did anybody else get that? Or-
Yes.
And I assume folks responded, but then she came in and conducted her survey, and the end result of that was this letter. I see 2 parts to it. The one part is the LEP plan, once it's completed, as Dan was talking about. It looks like attached here is a draft that Bonet had partially worked on. It looks like that could be done. I'm not too sure about this self-evaluation and transition plan, because I, for one, am not totally up to date on everything that goes into 504 and disability law as it is currently written. Suggestion would be, and we're not like a city, we're a whole lot simpler than that, but on the other hand, I don't know whether we need to find somebody to just take a look at it and write us a short plan based on what we have, or not. I mean, for instance, I know Portland State has a consulting and research services branch, and they deal with public and not for-profit organizations, and they may have something on the shelf, or they might be able to look at it and have a graduate student or somebody else basically do the report. I'm not prepared myself, unless somebody else is on the board, to put together and prepare what would generally satisfy the requirements of this self-evaluation and transition plan.
So we actually had emailed Susan and asked her who we needed to have help us fill this out. And she had mentioned reaching out to our local senior, a representative of the seniors in Tillamook. So I didn't know if maybe even Peter being part of CARE.
Like the way she worked that in there.
So I didn't.
Slid that in there,
Yeah,
very good.
so we just have to have somebody acknowledge these things that we have in the office and that we're doing them correctly from an organization that
Okay.
works with disability. So that was an option, but we could reach out to some local places here in town too.
And audit you? You need someone to audit you, is that what you're saying?
Well,
Fill out the form.
And what I'm reading, it should be like a non, it shouldn't be the staff trying to do it.
And it's just making sure that like we have appropriate posters and we have the things that they're saying that we need on the premises.
If not, we probably should bring in some outside neutral
Right.
help, that
Right.
this is what they do.
Yeah, I'd like to see like a third party.
Yes,
Do it,
yes.
maybe, yeah, just
Not
make sure
me.
it's done right.
Yeah.
Northwest Senior and Disability Services
Okay.
would probably be better.
okay,
Where are they based?
In Tillamook.
Oh, okay,
Well, everywhere
right.
in the Northwest, but they have an office in Tillamook.
Oh, good.
I think that's
so
what we thought.
they'd probably be at least a little bit familiar with this sort of thing, hopefully.
Maybe?
Well, and if they aren't, they could aim us in the direction.
Well, that's where my daughter works. I can ask her who in that office she would recommend. I mean, we can start there.
Yeah.
Yeah. My concern is that she wants something back to her in 30 days.
She wants a response back when we're gonna have this completed, I believe.
Yeah,
Is
so
what?
that would be October 6th. I need a response within 30 days. The response should indicate what actions, if any, have been taken and provide a time frame for addressing remaining items. So,
And we're gonna need help putting together the limited English proficiency plan, because the board will have to adopt that as policy. And I've never done it, so I would like,
Welcome, they're fun.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think that if we could get somebody on the outside to come in and help with this.
Yeah, it's
So if the letter could reflect that we're looking, we're reaching out to a third party, that would probably be enough.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that we have a plan in place and we're proceeding with it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, for LEPs, there are a bunch of services out there that you can pick up the phone and say, hi, I need help, and then they'll do it for you. And then just translate all of your postings into Spanish.
or whatever language is required. Because the sample we got from USDA was a lot of languages. And we have to put the binder up front where if somebody comes in, they can't speak, they can flip through this binder and pick out where their language is. So we'll have a starting point. But what I was gonna ask you, since you mentioned that, is that like a service, you don't have to have somebody on payroll, but there's a service that you can call and use the phone, speakerphone, or whatever, and they can translate. Okay.
We have the TTY, is it TTY? We do have that phone service already.
That's a disability.
Yeah, but
That's a great example of one.
Okay.
One, yeah.
So that's like if you have someone who's deaf, hard of hearing.
Right.
But there are, I can't remember who we used to use for Spanish. But there are ones where you can call and say, I have someone here who speaks Spanish. Help. Here's our account code. They're not too expensive.
Well,
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 not
the
like it
pricing, but it
happens
is a
every
requirement.
day, right?
That or somebody can take Spanish classes.
I took 2 years, but.
I mean, when's the last time you needed this?
never.
So, there you go.
There
I mean-
might be an option for nonprofits or
Usually,
something out there.
what we've had with building experience with people buying property, they usually bring somebody in with them. We've encountered some that can't speak and they speak only Spanish. But they usually have, whether it's one of their children or a relative or a friend will come in and do the translating. So we've never had to do it ourselves here. So they usually come in prepared for that. But we have to be prepared if they don't.
Yep. So there are services. Yeah.
That's why I'm glad that I heard you were coming tonight, because I was gonna ask, how do you do it at your office?
We
I don't wanna reinvent
we
the
hired
wheel.
bilingual, bicultural.
Yeah,
So we changed our reception and we changed the case manager for our most highly utilized program in Spanish speakers, our energy assistance program, which doesn't pay for sanitary districts, yay. We changed those to Spanish speaking requirement positions. But before that, we did have a call service. We only ever used Spanish.
I think that's probably the most prominent what you'll run into is that.
I don't know about Russian or,
Well, the cards that they had to print up was quite extensive, you know, for lots of different languages, Russian included, yeah, so.
So was that required by this to have all those cards?
Yes,
she actually points it out specifically.
yeah, yeah, it was required. That was easy to do, print it up, put it in a binder, and, you know, so that was a no-brainer, but there's a lot more of this that's more in depth than that. And I think mainly what we need to find is a service that the office can call if this person can identify what language it is, then we can call that number, whatever our account is, and then get help with that language. I kind of doubt we find a service that can do all the languages on that list that we have to.
There are.
Oh, really?
There are ones out there that like everything. Because hospitals use them.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I would call the hospital and ask them
Okay.
what service they use.
We say no.
Eric Swanson. Swanson E at
Okay.
ph.org.
Okay, any other questions or comments on?
Yeah.
There being none, correspondence. The warning letter with opportunity to correct. Do you want to go ahead and comment on that, Dan?
Well,
Start.
did you read the certified letter from DEQ on the warning? And it's a class 2 violation because it says that our permit under Schedule F, we don't have, our emergency plan does not cover it all. all the requirements in there. If you read Schedule F, I don't really agree with their interpretation of, well, what we don't cover in there, but it is what it is. I've contacted West Tech, who has written, you know, with us, has written our emergency preparedness plan. And if you read it on the second page, basically we just have to add all the contacts to all the agencies, and also notifying Oregon Health Authority, also notifying local radio stations, newspapers, things like that. Which kind of flies in the face of, they had to stop doing that quite a few years ago so they could control the message, so mixed messages weren't sent out. And now they want us to send out mixed messages. They want us to post the bay, even though we have no authority according to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife to shut down the bay. And when you post something, it looks like a shutdown. So this, to me, get information out is going to create more chaos than it's gonna help. But in this case, because this OER broke down, we're gonna have to now modify our emergency response plan. Even though DEQ recognized that our emergency response plan worked. I mean, we limited the spill to 5,000 gallons and not 35,000 gallons. So, but it all has to do with communication if you look on this page 2. So we are in the process with John at West Tech, and we'll get that done and given to DEQ for their review by the 30th, before the 30th of October. And then I'll bring the updated emergency preparedness plan draft to the board for approval after we've made all the changes.
And let's see, do we have an interim reply date required? That was October 30th.
October 30th, we have to have it into them for their review.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Also attached is the letter that I sent to West Tech regarding the feasibility of a catch basin down there to catch the limited amount of 5,000 gallons. Did anybody review West Tech's response?
Yeah.
Any questions on that? I agree with West Tech, it is not feasible to do. I wanted a ballpark number, just if you guys wanted one, what it would cost to put in a tank like that. Anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000, and most of that, it would probably be, half of that would be engineering at least. And the feasibility of it even be allowed, it will, DEQ, my understanding is they wouldn't allow a scheme like that because you're not fixing anything, because there's hundreds of potential spill points in the district. Every manhole is a potential spill point. One year we had a restaurant that had so much grease come out of their grease traps into the sewer line, we had to remove a grease ball the size of a basketball that plugged up the sewer line, which had nothing to do with the performance of the district's infrastructure, but nonetheless, it would back up till it came out of a manhole or into somebody's house. And everything is along the ocean here. So there is no way, no feasible way you could ever guarantee anybody 100% you're not going to spill into the state waters. Not to mention the danger and the cost just to maintain something that you may use once every 20 years.
So, in regard to this letter, as I said, I provided to Tamara this letter and several of the other documents this afternoon. And they're of course not here. It wasn't like, if you don't show up, we're gonna kill this issue. it was more along the lines of, here, take a look at this, and we may be discussing it again. I know that is probably a little bit weak, but I'm prepared to let them use this letter and let them come in and offer what comments they want to offer, and then have the board, just among ourselves, discuss the relative positions, and then take a vote on whether we agree with what the engineer's proposing, whether we just disagree with it, or want further study of it. But I think those are some of the possibilities, and I don't know that I am prepared to close the matter entirely tonight, just because they haven't shown up tonight. Had they had the material for a good period of time, I would have been more prepared to do that. So, Jerry, you've been really quiet this evening. Comments?
Well, I actually looked through my documents and I can't find the engineer's response to the letter. I got the second email with the letter,
Okay.
but I can't find the response. So I was just in my brain thinking, I'll just be sure I get that. And if I have any concerns or questions, I'll bring it up next time, and I'll be sure to talk with Dan. I gathered by context, they addressed the idea of a drain, but they didn't address the idea of a berm. Did a berm was just totally not feasible for anything, or did that get
No,
lost in translation?
No, I believe berm is in here.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't go through the letter, so
Yeah.
what they say about a berm?
Well, if you said about a berm, you're not allowed to block the flow of stormwater in a parking lot.
Oh,
So, and it's a little more in depth than that. I think this got sent to your NOSD email account, that's why you don't have it, Jerry.
all right, okay.
Okay? So, I mean, we can discuss it next month after you had a time to review it, or you can even give me a call and we can go over it too.
Yeah, that's fine, and I agree with John on, we should give it a little time for them to have a little more time than they've had to respond to it too. I mean, it's a conversation, it's not a, a warning of action or non-action. It's a conversation. They have to have a conversation. We're proceeding in good faith, and so we should give them another chance to show up. I don't feel threatened by that. I don't feel like it's holding us up on anything.
I just don't want to lose control of the conversation and have it turn argumentative from the point of view of them arguing with.
I didn't think they were very argumentative last time. They just wanted to know,
Excuse me?
what we could do. I mean,
He said that he didn't
I-
have to argue.
I think we're just proceeding the way normal people do with an issue like this. We've explored it, we've given them an answer. It's a public process. They should have a little more time to be able to come and talk to us in public about it. If we have all of our options open, we allow that. I agree with what you recommended, John. That's my bottom line.
Okay.
I also agree.
Anybody else have any comments? All right, then it looks like we have a letter from Acuity, who are accountants, and it's directed to the board, and it's some general terms of the conduct of their audit, which is ongoing, which will be for the year ending June 30th, 2022, and we can expect to see their audit probably in December.
Yes.
So, anybody have any comments or thoughts? Okay. If not, proceeding, we don't have an executive session tonight, and can I have a motion for adjournment? Does anybody have any comments they want to offer in general, even though it's not on the agenda? If there's no other comments, then a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
6:20.
A lot shorter than last time.
Hey, Jerry, if you want to check your other email when you get home, and and let me know if there's stuff in that one that you're missing or anything.
I will do, yes, I will.
Hey,
Sorry,
Jerry.
sorry for the confusion on that.
Jerry,
Yeah.
was it, the way the
Oh,
cameras,
I used to work nights on a group comments.
the way your, picture, the camera's taking your picture, you could be a Gene Hackman doppelganger.
What?
You look like Gene Hackman, and the, I
So
swear
I
it.
didn't say-
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of things I look at, I have kind of like a plastic face.
he was thinking the same thing, but didn't say anything.
United Methodist Church,
Do you
she
wanna
really wants to put in some.
make a copy of this, which I just put attachment with that there?
Has anybody ever told you that before?
Brian.
I wrote that note, but I need to
Nope.
attach the page
I've
to.
been called a leprechaun, but not a Gene Hackman.